What's going on, everybody? Simple back at it like I'm checking my height. Today we're checking out the best country in the world for drivers. Shout out to Not Just Bikes. If you guys don't know, make sure you go head over to his channel, show him some support over there. If you guys are new to this channel, make sure you guys subscribe. And if you have a request, the Google form is down in the description below. Let's go. Not sure why my computer's been doing that lately. Alright, we go.
The Netherlands is a great place if you don't want to drive. There are lots of areas that are pedestrianized and nearly car-free. Trains are so pervasive and frequent that they work almost like a countrywide metro system. Plus, rail stations
so
have
cool.
giant bicycle parking garages and high-quality public transit connections to get you to your final destination. And there are bicycle paths almost everywhere. In many cases, cyclists can take the fastest and most direct route to where they're going, while drivers need to take the long way around. I get a lot of comments on this channel by people who say that they love cars and would hate to live somewhere like this.
I have to disagree. Cars are fun and all well and good, but being able to move so freely, it takes you out of the confines of things that you have to do. Like, you have to follow, I mean, obviously you have to follow traffic laws still, but I'm saying you can only drive a certain speed, you can only drive down these roads, especially when you're driving around like the big city around here. It definitely sucks. I think I mentioned it in a previous video that we've done, but there's a lot of like one ways and stuff like that. So cars really hurt the direction that you can travel. They made it so you have to drive circles around. Bikes definitely
But
give
what
you
they
more
don't
freedom.
realize is that driving is awesome in the Netherlands.
Okay.
This summer, I traveled to Canada to visit family, and I did a lot of driving while I was there. After almost 2 years away, it was a real shock to go from the comfortable, civilized driving experience in the Netherlands to driving in Canada. It made me appreciate how good we have it here. I'm not the only one who thinks this either. Take for example the YouTube channel Curleem, an American and self-professed car guy who lives in Amsterdam
good luck
and has
taking a
made
left
several
here. You're gonna be
videos
stuck
about
in
how
the
much he
light.
prefers driving in the Netherlands compared to places like Toronto or his home state of Florida.
Oh, hold up. Who did what now? YouTube channel Curleem. He's the car guy who lives in Amsterdam.
Who lives in
Okay.
Amsterdam
We
and
might
has
have to
made
check him
several
out. Put him
videos
to the
about
Google
how
form
much
if
he
you guys want to check him
prefers
out.
driving in the Netherlands compared to places like Toronto or his home state of Florida. And yet, Florida is a state that is infamous for how car-centric it is, and how hostile it is for pedestrians and cyclists.
When you're on the highway down there, everybody does like 95 to 100 miles an hour. It's crazy. Even though it's between like 50 and 70 in most places, everybody's doing like 100. I think it's mostly because we can't drive fast. We're not allowed to drive fast, and it really seems like it takes a long time at, 30 to 50 miles an hour to drive 100 miles. So you figure the closer you hit to 100 miles an hour, the faster you're going to get there. And people definitely take advantage of it, especially on the long straight roads. I mean, even on curvy roads, it doesn't really matter. Like, people on the highway down south are crazy. People on the highway in Massachusetts up here are crazy. People driving in America are just crazy. I think that's the conclusion that we're slowly coming to.
It should be a great place to drive, but it's not. Further proof is available from Waze, who used to collect data from their platform to determine a driver satisfaction index each year. And they determined that the Netherlands was the best country in the world to be a driver. This doesn't surprise me at all. Driving in the Netherlands is so...
You know what really kind of sucks about things like that, though? Is I've noticed that when reports like that come out, people tend to start flocking to those areas because they're like, oh my God, we can drive comfortably here. That's all I want to do. We have to live in the Netherlands now. It's sad. That's sad. Because then you get overrun by a bunch of people.
pleasant. The infrastructure is of high quality, and it's in great condition.
Kind of sucks that people
And in
don't just stay
general,
where the hell they
traffic
are.
is pretty light and flows pretty smoothly.
But
Sure, there's traffic
freedom.
in rush hour, but rush hour is still about an hour. It's not a near constant traffic jam spread throughout the day like in most US and Canadian cities. It's more like a traffic hagelslag, lightly sprinkled over the week.
Hmm.
And there are clever approaches to temporary traffic conditions on the highway,
Hagelslag.
such as these rush hour lanes that open when necessary, and changing speed limits based on congestion because drivers traveling slower have less space between cars and make better use of the road space.
They do that in Massachusetts. In the mornings between like 5 and 7, or 5 and 8, you're allowed to use the breakdown lanes. And I've always thought this to be the craziest thing because a breakdown lane is exactly what it is. It's a breakdown lane. So if you're doing 100 miles an hour because you're an asshole trying to get around traffic and you're flying through the breakdown lane, I can only imagine how many accidents happen that way. It how many deaths happen every year because people drive 100 miles an hour through the breakdown lane?
It blows my mind that driving out of town on a long weekend doesn't involve getting stuck in soul crushing traffic, like it does in almost every other city I've lived in. You'll
Timing
see
is
lots of
everything.
caravans and bikes.
Especially like when I used to live further south in this state and would drive up here in the summer times, it would take us sometimes 3, 4 hours to get home because of traffic. So knowing the times that you have to leave and kind of knowing that, okay, on Friday around 2 o'clock, people are going to start getting out of work early. They're probably either already packed up or they're going to start packing up. They're loading everything they have, boats, trailers, RVs, toys, everything, and they're bringing it all up north. So you leave at noon and there's no traffic. Timing is everything.
Bicycles attached to cars, but otherwise, it's hardly any different than a regular day. I've lived in cities that have a quarter the population of Amsterdam, yet traffic in them is considerably worse.
Hmm.
This all comes down to the fundamental truth. There's no solution to traffic congestion except viable alternatives to driving, and most Dutch cities have viable alternatives to driving for many trips, which reduces the number of cars on the road. In many Dutch cities, taking a bicycle is often the fastest way to get somewhere, because cyclists can usually take the shortest and most direct route, while drivers need to take the long way around. You might think that this is bad for drivers, but it's not, because if cycling wasn't faster,
Then you
many
wouldn't
of
do
these
it.
people would be in cars, and the streets would be so clogged with traffic that the direct route would be even slower than the indirect route is today.
It's exactly the
In
problem we have
fact,
here.
this was the case in Amsterdam in the 1970s. It may seem counterintuitive, but designing to prioritize walking, cycling, and public transit actually works out better for drivers.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah, because of the people on the
unsurprisingly,
road.
the Dutch cities that are the most car-centric also have the worst traffic. One of the things that makes driving here particularly pleasant is the fact that the traffic lights are smarter, so you end up waiting a lot less.
Ooh.
I made a video about traffic lights from the point of view of cyclists and pedestrians, but they work better for drivers too.
Something I absolutely hate is the way our traffic lights are run. It's horrible. It's horrible. I swear there's people that sit behind these things and they watch the cameras and they sit there with a button and they're like, ha ha, red light, red light, red light, red light. We call them punishment lights here. Sometimes you'll be at an intersection, four-way intersection, in the middle of nowhere where there's lights because there's been accidents or whatever, so the town kind of sanctions that they put a light in. Okay, cool. Well, what they make you do is sit there for about 15 minutes. There's lights that you actually sit for about 15 minutes waiting for with nobody around. It's never made, or maybe it just feels like forever. It's never made sense to me, though. If anybody's ever seen the TV show Weeds, punishment light.
Almost every traffic light in the Netherlands has multiple detection loops. One at the stop line, like in many other countries, but also at least one farther back.
Oh,
This
that's cool.
junction has 3 of them. This allows the traffic control system to intelligently schedule the stoplights based on the traffic detected from each direction. For example, you will very often see the traffic light turn red just as the last car passes the stop line. This is because the control system uses the farther detection loop to determine that there isn't another car approaching, so it's safe to change the light to red early and let another direction go while there's a gap in traffic.
Now, what's the rule about moving on yellow? Yellow here, you're supposed to stop. It's slow to a stop is what it is. It's not caution. You have 2 more seconds to get through the light, which everybody in America seems to think that's what it means, which causes a lot of traffic accidents. But is yellow still the same out there? I would assume it
It
is.
also works to turn a light green early if it detects your car or bike is approaching when it's safe to stop traffic in other directions. Another difference is that, in the US and Canada, traffic lights are stupid and go all green in one direction, followed by all green in the other direction.
Yep.
But here in the Netherlands, traffic lights work in multiple phases, so there are many different combinations possible for things like dedicated right turns and left turns simultaneously.
We do have some of those
This not
around
only
here in New
speeds up
Hampshire.
waiting times at traffic
city.
lights, it also makes turning much less dangerous and stressful because when you have a green arrow, you're almost always clear to turn. In particular, the left turn across traffic on a strode is one of the most dangerous and stressful driving maneuvers in the United States and Canada.
Here's the easiest way to do it. Just pull out. The one rule that people follow here is that if you're pulling out, it is unlikely, right? And if you do it slow enough, it's unlikely if traffic's moving slow enough that somebody is going to just run into you. In the event it happens, it's probably going to end up being your fault. But if you want to get out in traffic, normally that's how you have to do it. You either floor it and drive, or you pull out slowly and just start blocking everybody. Both ways work.
I almost never need to perform a turn like this in the Netherlands. Speaking of stroads, there are almost none in the Netherlands, as I've talked about in previous videos. This means that when you're on a road, there are very few side streets, driveways, or
Well, wait a second, though. Do you never have to do that in the Netherlands because of the side you're driving on? I'm so confused, actually. Oh, wait, they drive on the same. I'm so confused now. I just confused the shit out of
Things to
myself.
slow you down. This has so many benefits that it's hard to list them all. In general, the lack of stroads keeps traffic moving smoothly and, even if the speed limit is lower, your average speed is much higher because there are fewer cars merging in and out and fewer traffic lights. This is something that people don't appreciate enough. Stroads have so many driveways and side streets that require merging into high-speed traffic that some driveways inevitably get traffic buildups from people trying to exit.
Yep.
The solution is to install a traffic light.
And when they start installing traffic lights inside of neighborhoods, you know you've got a problem.
Which is why there are so many traffic lights in most North American cities. In the newest Strong Towns book, Confessions of a Recovering Engineer, author Chuck Marohn measured his average speed at rush hour and found that it was about 16 kilometers per hour. Actually, it was an average of less than 10 miles per hour, but I'm converting everything to metric here because imperial units are stupid. So, despite the roads having a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour or more, his average speed was less than 16 because of all the traffic lights. And this was in a tiny town of only 14,000 people. Incidentally, 16 kilometers an hour is the average speed of a cyclist in Amsterdam, because bicycle routes are designed to avoid traffic lights and to keep cyclists moving. This really shows you how backwards American traffic engineering is when the average speed of a car in a small town in the US is the same as a bicycle in the largest and busiest city in the Netherlands.
Now here's the explanation for the street lights. Gas. It's because they know the more times they stop you, the more you're going to expend. Idling for a car is probably one of the easiest ways to just sit there and run out of gas, honestly. And a lot of people, when they pull up to the stoplights, they get irritated, right? Driving is meant to irritate you here so that you expend more fuel. That's what it is. That's what it is. We buy a lot of fuel from outside of this country, and they have to sell it to somebody, right? So the more lights you put in, the more idling you do, the more wasting of gas you do. When the light turns green, you floor it because you want to get to the next one before it turns red. So you're wasting a bunch of gas, and now before you know it, you're stopping at the gas station twice a day. They win.
I had the same experience when driving in my hometown this summer. I was constantly sitting at red lights when I was driving simply because there are so many of them. And if there aren't traffic lights, there are stop signs.
Everywhere.
So many stop signs.
Everywhere.
Instead of designing proper traffic calming, North American traffic engineers just put stop signs everywhere to slow down drivers.
Yep.
I already made a previous video about why I hate stop signs and why they shouldn't be required at all, especially for cyclists.
People here don't pay attention. It might not just be that, but people here just don't pay attention. I just watched this lady walk across the street, and if you were in New York, the dude on the bike or the person on that bike probably would have just ran into her because she would have stepped right out in front of him. People around here just don't care. They don't have the respect for other people and what they're doing. I'm not entirely sure why. I can't speak on that part. Definitely
But
a
yeah,
feeling that
it's
you get
so
when you're
nice to
here.
drive through the Netherlands and not see any stop signs at all. And the very, very, very few times you see one, it's actually necessary. Of course, there are many intersections with roundabouts too, which is even better.
Yeah,
Then
we
there's
started
almost
putting a
no
lot of
waiting at all
roundabouts
and
in around
traffic
here.
flows even more efficiently. Though roundabouts can get backed up if there's too much car traffic, so they don't
Or if people merge into them and don't know what they're doing, or they get scared, or, oh my God, there's so many accidents. There's one roundabout down about 20 minutes away from the house going back towards the city, and it is dangerous. People enter that thing at like 160. You expect them to start ripping the e-brake and drifting it.
work everywhere. Of course, the Dutch have a solution for that too, which is turbo roundabouts, but they deserve their own video someday.
Okay.
I would gladly take a road with a lower maximum speed limit if that road design means that I achieve a higher average speed, and
Yes.
that is exactly what I experience driving in the Netherlands.
And that is what people in America
I
don't
made a video
understand.
about speed limits recently, but what's relevant
What the
here
hell
is
kind of
that
road is
speed
this?
limits in the Netherlands mostly make sense. Different streets with different speed limits are designed differently,
Why did that road not look like it was built for two-direction traffic?
so you rarely
It
need to
wasn't,
check
was
your
it?
speed. The speed that feels right on a given street is usually the correct one. When I was driving in my hometown this summer, I was constantly needing to check what the speed limit was because everything is designed like a giant strode.
Yep.
Yet the speed limit could be anywhere from 40 kilometers an hour to 80 kilometers an hour with no difference in road design.
Yes.
Another factor that makes driving
Basically, we speed up speed limits when there's long stretches of nothing. We do that in New Hampshire a lot, especially on the highways, like below Concord. The speed limit is, was it 55, I believe? There's one part where it hits 65. I can't quite remember, or maybe I just hit 65 driving it. And then once you get past Concord, there is a spot where the speed limit turns to 70. And the reason for that is because there is literally nothing out there. Like there's exits and things like that that go to towns, but everything is so far and tucked away that if you were to break down and had to walk, it would suck. It even sucked. I broke down in town and had to walk 5 miles home. So, you know.
in the Netherlands less stressful is that the drivers themselves are better. There are many aspects of this, such as stricter licensing requirements, but I believe the single most important factor
Which is
is that
something we need
in most
here.
Dutch cities, there
One of the biggest jokes in America is that people get their license from cereal box because a lot of people just don't know how to drive. Our driving tests are so lenient that literally anybody can get a license. Anybody. You don't need to have any skills. All you do is you take this written exam. So if you're good at passing written exams, then you're in. You test your eyesight, and then you get in a car with one of the instructors, and they'll ask you to park in a parking space. If it's your second test, then they'll ask you to parallel park. When I had to go and retest for my license, he asked me if I knew how to, he said, if I told you to go parallel park next to my truck over there, you'd be able to do it? I said, yeah, you want to do it right now? And he said, there's no need. Well, how do you know that I can parallel park? I could have just lied to you. How do you even know? How do you know that I'm safe enough to be on the road if you don't actually test for anything? And then what they'll do, right? The whole driving test is to see how much you pay attention. So while you're driving, he'll ask you what the speed limit sign said 5 minutes ago, because the road, that you're on is normally it's either 25 in the city or 30 in the cities. Outside, let's see, in business areas, sometimes it can hit like 40, 45, depending on the stretch of road, or if it's a not quite a highway, but like a byway, like it gets you around. We have a lot of alternate routes to the highways. So like 3 Route 3 is the highway that runs basically through New Hampshire. 93 is another one. Doesn't run very far. 3 is probably the best example. Shit, I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, alternate highways. So 3 runs, that's the main highway, and then we have 3A, which basically is a 4-lane road, 2 on both sides, right? 4-lane road, and it bypasses the highway, but drives the same direction as the highway. It just has a lot more stoplights. Never has really made sense to me, aside from the fact that it could have been the old carriage roads, basically, the original roads that they'd used, and then as the country started growing, they'd put this road in to accommodate for certain things, and then highways came along, they started building the highways, and now there's no real use for this other road, so instead of, to keep the congestion out of the highway, they'll run you to the alternative. So a lot of people, it's like a rumor, it's like, have you been up 3A? Did you know that 3A? And that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of places around here. I don't even know where they go. Because it's not like we're just going to go out and explore. Like, if I was in the Netherlands, I would explore this whole thing. I actually was on a website the other day. It's called The True Size Of. Took the Netherlands, moved it over to the United States. It's as big as my state is. Your whole country is as big as my state is. I am riding a bike across that thing. We are doing it. So anybody wants to do it, let me know. We're doing it. When I get out there, we're going to try it. I don't know if we're actually going to do it. I don't even know if I could ride a bike across my whole state. But to say that you rode across an entire country, I'm down. All right, enough of me talking. Let's go.
There are viable
Going off on
alternatives to
rants
driving.
now.
This means that the only people who are driving are those people who want to drive or those people who need to drive. Most people who live in a Dutch city can make many trips by walking, cycling, or public transit. Even if somebody drives to work, they may still get their grocery shopping by bicycle, walk to a doctor's appointment, or take public transportation to a football game. In particular, shopping by bicycle or by walking is a very low-stress activity, and it's usually done when you're on the way home from somewhere else, so it doesn't even feel like a chore. In car-dependent places, you need to drive for everything, so even the most trivial of errands like buying a bag of milk feels like a trip. Not only does this result in a huge amount of excess cars on the road, contributing to more traffic, it also just sucks to do. It sucks to have to get in your car and drive in traffic to do normal everyday tasks like going to an appointment or feeding your family. Some people may like cars, but driving in this traffic is not fun. So when you get a...
Now, I do want to state again, the entire size of the Netherlands is as big as the state of New Hampshire. And we are one of the smallest states in the country. So you can understand why this country is very car dependent.
A whole city of people who are forced to do something that sucks every single day, you get a lot of pissed off people on the road.
I don't think it's just that. I think it's the humdrum of daily life here, because everybody's so driven. You have to go to work, go to school, go to this, go home, eat, shower, go to bed, wake up, do it again. It is a constant vicious cycle. And I think that's the part that really pisses people off. And then knowing you have to go sit in traffic, that's kind of like the last straw. And it's an everyday thing. It really is an everyday thing.
That's not to say that there are no assholes on the road here in the Netherlands. I mean, they sell a lot of Audis here too. But there simply isn't the same level of angry, distracted, or bored drivers that you have to contend with in a car-dependent city. This contributes so much to making the driving experience more pleasant here. And this is even more noticeable when walking or cycling, because you're not dealing with hyper-aggressive impatient jerks every time you encounter a car. Of course, it also helps that conflicts between drivers and cyclists are kept to a minimum in the Netherlands, either with protected bicycle paths, or by providing totally separate routes for bicycles.
Yes.
This also makes it less stressful to drive, because despite there being so many cyclists in the Netherlands, I find it much easier to avoid people on bicycles when I'm driving. Most people want to avoid hitting pedestrians and cyclists unless you're a pickup driver in Houston or something, so having fewer points of conflict with people outside of cars makes driving easier. Another thing that makes driving great in the Netherlands is that the road infrastructure is of extremely high quality and it's exquisitely maintained. Seriously, I've been living in the Netherlands for 3 years now, and this is the only bad pothole I've ever seen. It was
Wow.
so notable that I went home to get my camera to film it. This blows my mind. There's a lot of myths about where potholes come from, but when you boil it all down, they're caused by two things: lots of heavy vehicles and insufficient maintenance.
Hmm.
The formation of potholes can be sped up a lot by freeze-thaw cycles, but
Yes.
this only happens if water is allowed to enter cracks in the asphalt or if there is poor drainage of the road. If cracks are filled promptly and water is not allowed to penetrate, then potholes are much less likely to form.
This is how you create jobs.
Look at any list
Job
online of the
security.
worst roads in America, and you'll see sunny places like Honolulu, Los Angeles, and Baton Rouge right alongside New York, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. The fact is, when your city is built only for cars and trucks, you're going to have a lot more car and truck traffic.
Hmm.
And as Strong Towns has taught us, if your city is made up of sprawling car dependent infrastructure, then it's not capable of financially sustaining itself. This is ultimately the real reason why the roads are in such poor condition in many other cities. There's just too much asphalt and stormwater management infrastructure per person to properly maintain it all.
I think a large part of it also is that we don't acquisition enough funds for those particular things. And if we do, then they're just sitting on them. So I'm not entirely sure what happened with all of that. But like I said before, it's definitely job security. If they don't fix the roads and then it becomes a problem, then other people can come and fix it and they get paid for it. And it's a lot of money. So why fix it? We'll just replace it when we need to because we can make all that money. Capitalism.
This leads to the sad irony. Designing your city only for cars makes the roads worse for drivers. And then there's the issue of tax. Drivers simply do not pay the full cost of the roads, period. This is especially true in the United States, where the federal gas tax has been the same since 1993 at
Now we have to pay shit. All right, so there's tolls on the highways here. There's 3 tolls. Was it 3 tolls or they remove one finally? Pretty sure there was 3 tolls at 75 cents a piece per car. So you can only imagine how much money the highway department is making from all of that. Where does that money go though? You figure 2 million cars a day drives through a toll booth at 75 cents. We'll round it to $1. That's $2 million a day. What the fuck are they doing with all of it? Pockets. That's where it goes.
18.4 cents
Telling
per
you that's where it
gallon,
goes.
while the
Capitalism. That's
number
what
of
it
miles
is.
of asphalt and
How much
construction
money
costs
can I
have
make without putting
skyrocketed.
as much back
But
into the
that's a
business?
larger topic that deserves its own video someday.
It's not just fuel tax.
And finally, driving in the Netherlands just looks nicer too.
100%
You wouldn't
agree.
think it makes a big difference, but it does. It's so much nicer to drive along a road like this than a strode like this.
Yeah.
This is like the origin of the parkway concept. Just as people like taking walks in parks, mid-century traffic engineers thought that people would enjoy going on drives along parkways. So many parkways were created in the US and Canada as a place for leisure driving. Of course, due to induced demand, those parkways became more like parking lots.
There's a parkway in Connecticut. I'm pretty sure the speed limit is like 40. It is one of the most dangerous places I have ever driven. Ever. Absolutely ever. It tops New York with the cabbies and the bicyclists crashing into you constantly. In New York they sell bumper guards that you put in the trunk of your car that is a pad like this so that when people roll into the back of you, it doesn't damage your car. But then you get the parkways where it's 40, everybody's doing 90. The place where this particular parkway is, the state doesn't need to have people in the state don't need to, there's no sanction for cars, basically. You can drive whatever you want to drive as long as it drives on the road. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to put your bumper back on. I've seen vehicles doing 90 up this parkway, swerving in and out of traffic with bumpers hanging off. their door falling off, no handle, no back window. Why are you driving this thing? See, that's something I've always wondered is why is this stuff actually allowed? It's freedom. Because in the United States we're free to do whatever the hell we want apparently, but we're not. That's where they get you. That's where they get you. So each state is allowed to kind of dictate what it wants to do with itself. Like in our state, you have to have everything. I mean, I can't even get my dad's truck inspected right now because the garage down the street fucked it up so bad. I can't do anything about it though. Nothing I can do about it. But you go to another state and, somebody might be like, oh, hey, this, and that, and this, and this, and that. Now, a lot of laws are federal, a lot of laws are state. They don't share them with everybody. Not everything is just known here. So it might be like that out there as well, but parkways suck. I guess that was my point.
Trust me, I did
Parkways
not
are
enjoy
not
taking
what
the
they
Don
were
Valley
intended
Parkway
for.
to work
I can
every day.
guarantee that.
I don't
Just a
particularly
scenic route
like
to do
cars,
90
and I
through.
treat them like any other kind of tool. Car enthusiasts are really bizarre to me because it's like being a power saw enthusiast. I mean, yeah, they're pretty cool, but I really don't care about them unless I need to cut some wood. Now, power washers, on the other hand, are something I could get into. So if the Netherlands can make someone like me appreciate driving, then it's really impressive. Though I must
Weird.
admit that my
Okay.
favorite part of driving in the Netherlands is when I park the car and get back on my bike. Because what's even better than driving in the Netherlands is cycling here.
Isn't that an electric bike?
I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon who pay me
want an
to
electric
extol my
bike
love
so
of
bad.
driving. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to bonus videos, visit patreon.com/notjustbikes.
All right, let me know what you guys thought about this one down in the comments below. Let me know where to go from here in the Google form. Definitely make sure you go show Not Just Bikes some support on this video. Go give them a like. Go let them know Simple React sent you. If you have a request, Google form, like I just said. I don't know why I say that like 9,000 times. Request, Google form. All right, make sure you guys stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive. I'll catch you on the next one.